Welcome to Hometown Pros. Our guest today is Pastor Dave Pennell from Abundant Life Church. Pastor Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we're going to talk about the homeless shelter. I know you guys are progressing down there on 10th Ave. Can you tell me more about the shelter?
Well, right now we're waiting on some building permits, but we've gotten all the approvals from the city. We have the zoning done, the special use permits been all done. We were in front of the Board of Appeals, and that was all done. So all we're waiting for right now is a building permit so we can revamp the rooms and get the people in there.
Do you have any timetable?
Well, we really thought we were going to be in there this summer, but right now, if things were to take place in the next week, we could possibly be in there the 1st of November, but it takes some cooperation from people.
Are you running out of time as far as weather?
Yeah, we are. That's a big concern of mine right now. It really tugs on your heart when you got to tell families that there's no room at the end. And right now there are no vouchers or anything to get them out of the weather. And a lot of people don't understand or don't even believe that these people are living in cars and tents and under the bridges, but that's a fact.
How many homeless people do you think are in our community?
Well, the last report from the state of Michigan, the whole UP is Region 1. And the report came out for 2014 that there was a little over 4,300 people in the UP that were homeless. And out of that, 25 were literally homeless. They didn't have any place to go. Now, that's just the UP. That's not northern Wisconsin either.
Wow. Our guest today, Pastor Dave Pennell, Abundant Life Church, and we're talking a little bit more about the homeless shelter. Now, if this comes to fruition and this shelter is open, how many people can you house?
We can house 88 people, and that's according to the new ordinance that was developed by the city.
All right. So is that families, individuals? Who
That's individuals. We will have 11 rooms for families, and then we have one big dorm room for the women and one big dorm room for the men.
Oh, really? Yeah, I wondered how you're going to segregate this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the first school we looked at would have been a lot easier, but that didn't come through. So we work with what we have, and there'll be security cameras and things like that for everybody's safety throughout. And we've kind of done the best we can to separate everybody.
Well, it sounds like you've got to jump through a lot of hoops to make this work.
Yeah, there's been a lot of hoops to jump through, but we've had great support with people in the community and businesses. Marinette Marine every year has donated food. Wapaka actually donated the cost of going down and getting the brand new beds for us, I think in either Kentucky or Tennessee. Anchor Coupling has donated food to us. Tyco has donated some of the sprinkler system to us. And there's just a lot of other small stores around that's helped us out. Aldi's helps us with food every Saturday and Sunday. Jack's with food. And so there's just a lot of community support out there. And then, we need to pay it forward, too. I was approached by Feeding America with a grant from Caterpillar. And what that makes is we're able to bring, the first one was in July, 15,000 pounds of food that we were able to give out. And we gave that out to about 258 people. Well, this last truck that came in last week was 20,000 pounds of food. 5,000 of that was donated to us. And we just don't have the capacity for 5,000 pounds of food. So we took what we needed, about 700 pounds, and we gave that out. And we had over 319 people come through. Menominee County is a big red area, according to Feeding America.
Well, I always thought about this, too, having lived in a southern climate for a while when I was younger. There, you could get away all year. Probably heat stroke was the worst thing in Phoenix back then. But up here, what do you do in the winter?
Well, like in Marquette, they have churches that'll open up for just the evening. And each week a different church switches. The thing about that is that's a huge liability on a church, and they don't even realize it. Something happened, and you go to court, and they'd be all done. But then during the day, they have a warming station. But, who's going to take a family of 4 and go from a church to a warming station back to a church? It just isn't conducive. And, the elements here in the UP, we never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. and it could be 85 degrees with high humidity, or it could be 60 degrees. The rain. I mean, there's a lot of things. I lived in Hawaii, and Hawaii is a perfect place to be homeless because the temperature is the same all the time. But we're not in Hawaii. We're in the UP, and there's people that need help up here.
So who ends up in these situations? What kind of people do you bump into?
Well, when you say the word homeless, you think of what you see on TV, Chicago, New York, and that's not a pretty picture. But that isn't what we have up here. Most of it is just good people that fell on bad times. We got an 81-year-old guy right now that his Social Security just doesn't do it. And he was going to live in a trailer without any heat or electricity. And, we've had him there at the shelter. We've got vets coming in that just can't make it on their disability, or, they're just not able to hold a job because of whatever they went through. And then we got families that's come and tried to help their other family members, and it just fell apart. So it isn't, we get, as far as the drug scene and the alcohol scene, maybe 10-15% of the people we get in are out of that because they're not going to come to me because of our rules. And I will, if somebody comes in, I catch them with the illegal drug or abusing prescription drugs, I turn them in. So, they don't want to take that chance.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the rules. Are there a lot of rules? I mean,
well, when I first got here, the pastor previous to me, he didn't run it very well. And he had about 7 rules. And as I've been doing this now for a couple of years here, I think we're at 40 or 45 rules. And sometimes they seem a little adolescent, but some of these people, they were never taught how to live and how to be values and morals. And so we had to make up rules. And like I said, right now it's either 40 or 45 rules that we have.
Wow, 40 or 45. So basically, you've got to really fly right to make this work if you want to stay for any amount of time.
Well, we do, and I made a promise to the community. I plan on sticking to it. I'm going to follow the rules that the city's put up. We don't do anything illegal. In fact, we're really here to help the community, and the law enforcement. So, and my personal feeling is on it that if I made that promise, we're going to fulfill that promise.
How did you end up here?
Well, I was born and raised just outside of Flint, Davison, Michigan, and I got friends up here, and I used to come up snowmobile, four-wheel, hunt, and I just felt more at home. But back in 2005, we moved to Hawaii, and that's where I got right with God, and I started schooling online, and in 2011, I took a job in Salt Lake City. Well, in 2013, I graduated from college with a bachelor's degree, pastoral ministry, and I met somebody the pastor that actually started this mission. And he says, hey, I got something going on, you want to check it out? And it just so happened that we were going to take the north route back into Utah. And I said, yeah, we'll stop in about a week. I'm going to visit with my mom and that. And we stopped in, and, I got to be honest, it was terrible. He had animals there, like a petting farm, and that was terrible. It was just dingy. It was nasty. And I was promised $200 a month and a place to stay at the mission. I looked over and seen the look on my wife's face, and it wasn't too impressive.
I can imagine.
So, we were going around town and headed back to Utah. And after about 3 days, she looked over and she said, we're moving, aren't we? And I said, yeah, it kind of looks that way. Our whole thing was, here I graduated, and I'm a pastor, I'm ordained, when am I going to put my money where my mouth is? And so July 8th, I moved here, 2013, and, we have no plans on going anywhere.
Interesting. Wow, Pastor Dave Pennell from Abundant Life Church is our guest on Hometown Pros. We're going to take a short break and then come back with more of the show right after this. Welcome back to Hometown Pros here on Hometown Radio 103.7 FM. Our guest today is Pastor Dave Pennell from Abundant Life Church, and we've been talking at length about the homeless shelter. Now, I know you've got your detractors out there. There are people I've heard on the street, I've read in newspapers that seem to want this not to happen. Now, when I heard originally that people were talking about busing in homeless people from Detroit, I heard that on the street a little bit. And my opinion was, come on, really?
Well, and I kind of have that opinion too. The homeless people, 1 out of maybe 5 people that come to us have a vehicle, and maybe 1 out of 10 actually have a job. And so, where's the money to get here? And again, if somebody's going to bust somebody, somebody's got to get paid for it.
Oh, sure.
And there's no market there. I had told the people at the mission, I was talking to them one day, and I says, the word on the street is that people are shopping for a homeless shelter. And, they'll travel from out of state. And it hits me kind of strange because I get paid and I don't have money to travel. And now we're talking people who are homeless that have no money can travel. It's to me, it's a common sense thing. We're doing what they're saying to Green Bay. We ship all of our people to Green Bay. And with my experience in the Marine Corps, we take care of our own, and we're not. So, it goes back to, as we were talking earlier, what would Jesus do? And he's not going to kick them out just because they don't fit into Menominee.
When I heard about this, and I heard about some of the detractors, and I posed one question to them because I like to argue. I said, so what do you tell them? The inn is full? I mean, I've heard that story.
Yeah, well,
it's a pretty big story.
That's a tough thing to do because I've had to turn away a mother living in a car with 4 kids 2 winters ago, which, if we remember, was pretty cold. And that's not a fun thing to do. My secretary last year told somebody that we couldn't take them because we were full, and you could hear the baby in the background. And he come to me with tears in his eyes saying, I'm never going to do that again. You get to do it. And it's no fun for me either. But, there is a huge homeless problem up here. In Menominee County alone, 193 people are considered homeless.
So they've got nowhere to live.
Nowhere. Cars, tents. They'll break into abandoned houses or warehouses.
Cabins.
And sleep. Yeah. The house that we bought that came with the church, the back door had been broken into and people had been sleeping in there. So if nothing else, we get these people, they're not breaking into houses. We'll house them. We watch them. And, again, with me being in the Marine Corps, I don't take a lot of garbage from a lot of people.
Well, you got to think, too, what's your success rate? I mean, how do you do?
Well, that's going to always have ups and downs just because the population. But last year in 2014, we had a 65% success rate. And I think that's pretty good because even rehab centers don't have that high of a success rate unless you look at Teen Challenge. The question has been put up, what happens to the other 35%?
That was my next question.
Yeah, and all I can say on that is they'll either move out of the area or they go back to living the same way they've always lived because they're not willing to make that change. And it's a cycle. And unless you're willing to stop that cycle, you're going to continue that cycle. Now, we get 65 out of 100. That's pretty darn good. And even some of these people in the 35 have come back and finally gotten it. But the number's always going to fluctuate. I mean, obviously, when we can only handle 24 and the new location 88, there's going to be a fluctuation in it. And, it's like the old saying, you can give somebody the tools, but that doesn't mean they're going to build the shed. And that's the same thing with us. We give the tools, but I can't make them be better.
So do you have to teach a lot of these people, different life skills?
Oh, yeah. Some of these people, they don't know how to cook. They don't know how to clean. On Father's Day, I get Father's Day cards from them because I'm the closest thing to a father they've ever had. And I'm talking people in their 40s that I wouldn't be old enough to be their dad.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, they work out. They've been doing the work outside. And the cool thing about it is, like when we were doing all the landscaping, when we got all done, a couple people stood back and said, wow, I was a part of that, and it looks good. So it's a self-esteem thing. And, we're trying to get life skill classes in. We have computers to look for jobs. If they want to go back to school on the computers, we have that. I'm all about making them better than when they came to us.
So do you try to, if you have someone who contacts you that's obviously impaired in some way, do you direct them to treatment? How does that work?
We've had some people with mental illness, and the first thing we do, I can't do a whole lot personally, but we get them hooked up with North Point, and they do the intake. And we've had good success with that. We try to help people out in any way we can. I've helped them out with medical, dental, trying to get disability if they need it, driver's licenses, food cards, education. I'm the COC director here in Menominee County, so I work directly with MISHDA for housing. We try to get them housing. We worked with HUD, the VA. We worked with them quite a bit. So it's just an array of different organizations that we work with. Sometimes we've gotten a hold of the Salvation Army to get people into rehab. So, I'll do whatever I can physically to help the people.
Well, I imagine we were talking life skills earlier. I imagine some of these people don't even know what's out there that could help them.
Oh, no. It's just like at one time, AMCAB said, all you have to do is go to the library and get on the computer. And, I thought that was funny because some of them don't even know where the library is. They don't have a library card. They don't have no way of knowing about it. And then they're computer illiterate. So that makes no sense. And so we have to help a little bit. And, that's a success rate for me. It isn't the numbers, just like a lot of churches. The more number people you have, the more success you have. And that's not necessarily true. It's what you're doing for Christ and what happens to that person when they fulfill something. That's success. Not how many people I can stick in a church on a Sunday or how many people come to it. Those are just numbers. The success is them getting their life back together and becoming fruitful in the community, being an asset instead of a detriment.
Talking with Pastor Dave Pennell from Abundant Life Church about the proposed homeless shelter. How far along are you guys?
We've done everything we possibly can without a permit, and we've staged some stuff so when we get the permit, we can start building. But we're just about at the point where we're going to be, just sitting there, and it's really kind of sad because last month we had about an average of 20 calls a month. We're up to 35 to 40 calls a month right now. And it isn't from people from New York or California or any other state except Michigan and Wisconsin. And our service area right now, because we are the only mission that's open 24/7, 365, and takes men, women, and children in the whole UP in northern Wisconsin.
Oh, the only one?
The only one. And, once we hit 88, we can't take anymore. But the majority of the people are, if you look at about a 50-mile radius, that's the majority of the people coming in.
When people talk about transparency, do you give tours, you show people what you're doing, your bylaws, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we're very transparent. If somebody comes in and wants to see the rules, we'll give them a copy of the rules, the intake. I haven't changed my story one bit since I started this. And I've been on radio shows and television and newspapers and civic organizations and churches. Never change our story. You want to come and check out the place. If I'm not there, somebody will give you a tour. But you can look at our books. You can see our board of directors. You can see our rules. You can look at the rooms. Obviously, once we get moved there, there's restrictions because I can't let just anybody wander around. But right now would be a perfect time to come in and check it out. And we've had some people do that.
How about that? Well, it's been a very interesting show. If people want to get involved with this and find out more, how do they do that?
Well, our telephone number is 906-424-4429, or you can get on Facebook. It's Abundant Life Church and Mission, and we have a lot of stuff on Facebook. I'm not really all that tech savvy, so I don't remember all the websites and everything. We do have a website. I wish I could tell you what that is. But
well, if you Google Abundant Life.
Right, yeah, you'll find it. And but the Facebook has a lot of stuff on it. We have a wish list right now to try to get the materials that we need. Habitat for Humanity, WDM, plumbing. A lot of these guys are just waiting for me to give the okay, and we start.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being my guest today.
Well, thank you.
Pastor Dave Pennell, Abundant Life Church, right here on Hometown Pros on Hometown Radio, 103.7 FM.